Hello and welcome to the IDEM Risala Update interactions. The elections are over. The new government has taken oath of office. The portfolios of the ministers have been allocated. But one important component of this election, or one important controversy that was had come up repeatedly in the context of this election, that is the mismatch in the votes, votes tabulation of the Election Commission of India, and the manner in which the electronic voting machines have been deployed, that has come back again. And making a big expose yesterday was Poonam Agarwal, senior independent journalist and one of the founders of uh, an explanatory a YouTube portal which kind of explains a lot of mysterious issues, especially in relation to the elections. She has come up with an amazing story which listed 140 constituencies where the the EVM votes polled and the EVM votes counted do not match. Poonam, welcome to the IDEM Risala update interaction. So let us start by talking about this very story. How did you go about working on this story?
So I actually thank you first of all for having me on your show. So this votes polled and votes counted mismatch was first reported by me in the election 2019 Lok Sabha elections, and when I reported that, it was based on the documents which was uploaded by the Election Commission of the votes polled data, and of course I tallied with votes counted, and I found that the mismatch was existing in more than 173 constituencies. The mismatch was like this, like in some constituencies, votes counted were more than votes polled, which is in surplus, and votes counted less, as in some constituencies showed that the votes were counted less, which means the deficit in votes counted data. So when I wrote this article, I asked for Election Commission to explain the matter, but they did not explain why the discrepancies occurred in so many constituencies. Rather, they withdrew the votes poll data from the Election Commission website. But this matter went to the Supreme Court, where it was heard after 5 years in 2024. ADR, Association for Democratic Reform, they filed an petition. So in the court, the Supreme Court said that there wasn't any discrepancy. Actually, the media and the NGOs, they actually tallied the data of votes polled, which was approximate and not the actual. So this is
Yeah.
the history. So now we are talking about 2024 data. As we know that initially,
Again, you are in the forefront of the demands for getting the list of the absolute votes out, and finally the election
yeah,
commission had to succumb. So now,
yes.
what is their argument now? Because now they cannot say that they gave approximate numbers.
Absolutely, you're right. Now they cannot say it's an approx number because they uploaded this data on 25th of May after 5 phases were over. And in the press release, they said that they are uploading all 5 phases absolute number. And these are accurate number. They said that there should not be any discrepancy in these numbers between the Form 17C, which mentions the votes poll data, and the number that they are putting out in the press release. So this is not an approx number. Now, exactly as you asked me that what will be the defense of the Election Commission, why it is not matching? I don't know. I can't say. So the mismatch is, I want to clear one more thing, that the mismatch that I have found is almost 99% in the in the data, which I by which I mean that around 140 plus, more than 140 parliamentary constituencies show that there is a surplus vote count, as in the votes which were counted were more than votes polled, which is just beyond anybody's explanation. How could Election Commission count more votes than it was polled? And in the remaining constituencies, deficit vote count were found. Only in 3 parliamentary constituencies, which I found that the numbers are matching exactly with votes polled and votes counted. In rest, what I have found, at least my data crunching, which I have done myself, there are mismatch. Now, this mismatch, what is the reason? Election Commission has come up with, because, the chatter is on their Twitter space. We're asking ECI. I have written mails to them. I have tagged them on the Twitter for the past 4-5 days. I've been tagging them and asking them, what is the reason of surplus votes being counted? What is the reason of deficit votes being counted? So they have not given any answer to me directly. Rather, in one of the tweets, the Chief Electoral Officer of Uttar Pradesh, he said that the mismatch, as in the deficit vote count, happened because some of the EVMs were not counted. And why they were not counted? They were not counted either because of malfunctioning, or the Form 17C number did not match with the control unit number, which is the EVM machine, as in the paper number and the machine number did not match. Hence, they did not really count it. So now the question remains that this is a generic answer. We need specific answers. Why? It cannot be the same problem for all parliamentary constituencies. So if they are saying these are the two primary reasons, then why can't they give specific reasons for each parliamentary constituency why certain EVMs were not counted? One. Now, if they were not counted, they should make a list and put it out in public domain that so many
Absolutely.
EVMs were not counted. Because what I have understood is that the deficit vote count is huge. The number is huge. And if we go
How huge? Can you kind of give an average count?
I need to do the maths, but it runs in lakhs. Lakhs of votes were not counted. So if we say lakhs of votes were not counted, that means thousands of EVMs were not counted.
Right.
So why these thousands of EVMs were not counted? Are you saying it was due to some malfunction, or because the data recorded by the election officer, the presiding officer, was incorrect? So if it is because of the malfunction of EVMs, then it's a big concern again. The machine malfunctioning in this huge number, because of which you are not able to count votes, is again a big problem. As a voter, I would want my vote to be counted. Everybody would want that. Everybody would want that the 100% counting should happen. I understand people may
But
argue
but
that
but
doesn't.
but you're also pointing out there are constituencies where more votes were counted than the votes polled. You have
Absolutely.
in your video you have listed 3 constituencies
So,
where more votes were counted than polled, and 3 constituencies where less votes were counted than polled.
yeah,
So there is a total mismatch in either it is going that side or is it coming this side.
absolutely. It's either sides. Either sides it's going. Now, deficit, they have somewhat given a vague explanation on which I have asked questions again. I've written an article also and I've asked them these questions that, okay, if you have issues or whatever, why can't you put out in public domain that these are the EVMs which we could not count and these are the reasons we could not count? Because see, Election Commission, it's their job to maintain public transparency. Voters are the major stakeholders. We are major stakeholders. We have every right to know what they have done. So if they are unable to count certain EVMs, tell us that these are the reasons why we could not count. And it is, I feel that even the political parties, it's their responsibility to find and dig deeper. What I understand, many experts whom I speak to, they also say that the political parties, the candidate, they just give up if they lose the election. If they win, they also don't care. So neither of them care who wins or who loses. So the point here remains that if there are discrepancies, then Election Commission needs to explain why these discrepancies occur. And
But
in the
now the Maharashtra Uddhav Shivasena candidate Amol Kirtikar, who fought from the Mumbai constituency, who lost by 48 votes, he has now written a letter to the election commission saying that the EVM sampling was not proper. The way it was the test was done does not done properly, and he is alleging that there is EVM manipulation. So finally, some political party or some candidate is taking it up finally.
Well, that's good if they are taking it up and they are writing to Election Commission. In fact, as per the Supreme Court's order, as I mentioned, there was an order by the Supreme Court that any candidate who stood second and third can ask for checking and verification of the EVM machine. So as per the court's order, he's rightly demanding so. And there was one SOP, as in the operating procedure, was standard operating procedure was issued by the Election Commission, in which they actually mentioned the process and the amount that he has to anchor. So it's good that at least one candidate has come forward, and as we know that the margin was very, very small, very slim, 48 votes. So of course there could be some doubts in his mind why this has happened. So the point again is that the awareness among the political parties and the candidates is also to some extent I feel is required, because this discrepancy should not happen. EVM is electronic voting machine. It will record, it should show the exact number as polled. There cannot be any reason why it should not show the exact number. And I've spoken to few former election commissioners also. They also said that there is no reason why there should be any discrepancy, even by one vote. But now we are seeing that the discrepancy, the deficit vote is going as high as 16,000 votes. So
My
does
God.
that mean that 16,000 votes, they were not counted because of some clerical error or because of malfunctioning of EVMs? 16,000 plus votes were not counted. So you can imagine that in one EVM, on an average, 600 to 700 votes are being polled, in a polling booth. So if we take that as a standard, so around, you can say 17 to 18 EVMs were not counted in one parliamentary constituency. So this is a huge number. We are talking about huge numbers which are not being counted, and this is part of our election. Hence Election Commission needs to give some clarification on it, because in the past, for 2019 election, they have said that there was no discrepancy.
Right.
They have to tell us why.
Yeah, so I mean, the ECI certainly needs to explain these things, but I would like to bring to your attention certain political reactions and certain reactions from political observers. Like, for example, the Prime Minister Narendra Modi is on record in the Central Hall talking to his NDA partners, saying that now that they are not going to blame the EVM because they've had a better performance, and this whole EVM allegation is now been buried by the opposition parties. Similarly, but then from the opposition side also, I had filed a story in the IDEM in the run-up to the elections, where I had, on the basis of the RTI responses that an RTI activist from Mumbai, Manoranjan, got. So he had pointed out to certain interesting, factors in terms of the deployment of EVMs and the number of voters we have increased. According to the RTI, responses that he got, about 7 crore, more than 7 crore voters had increased between 2000 and 2014. 150 polling booths had been, not 150, I think about 15,000 polling booths had been, 15,000 polling booths had been increased to kind of, to factor in for this increase in voters. But the actual number of EVMs deployed was about 2 lakh EVMs, lesser EVMs were deployed, despite the increase in the number of voters, despite the increase in number of polling booths. And I had brought this up to the attention of many senior journalists, including our top mainstream anchors and stuff like that, and also certain opposition political leaders. So the response that I got from two major political leaders, unfortunately I cannot name them, they said that if we raise this issue at this point of time, I said, whether you believe that there is a conspiracy, whether you believe there is some kind of a kind of deliberate attempt to orchestrate the voting and all that, the Election Commission of India has to respond to these basic fundamental queries. And I said, why don't you raise that point? So they said, if we raise that point at this point of time, people would think that that we are kind of afraid of defeat, and that's why we are raising these points. So the point is, something as fundamental as the counting of votes, the deployment of EVMs, and the huge mismatch in all these things, the opposition parties also are not ready to kind of probe this into. So how as a journalist who has been are kind of consistently following this story, the election commission story. How do you look at these responses?
Well, you're right. There is a division among the political parties when it comes to EVM, and it is not like it's happening for the years, which I'm aware of. But look, Venkatesh, I'm a journalist. I'm nothing to do with political parties. I'm a journalist. I do stories on facts. Whatever facts I get, whatever data I get, I do stories on the basis of that. I'm no, expert of, IT expert, or you say computer science engineer. I'm not one of those. I don't know anything what's inside the EVM. I'm not claiming, I never claimed that EVMs can be hacked. I'm not saying that election commission is manipulating EVMs to, win, so that the ruling party can win. I never said that. All I said, and I still maintain that EVMs and VVPATs are vulnerable to manipulation based on the designs and the process that has been followed. That too, I never claimed. It was claimed by one of the returning officer. This was Kannan Gopinathan. So he first brought this out because he was a returning officer in 2019, and that article went out. But what was the claim in the court? What was the petition in the court? That needs to be understood, which I fear that many people don't understand. Including journalists, the demand was 100% VVPAT slip counting, and I
Right.
totally stand by it. I totally stand by it for two reasons. One, you, as in the government and the election commission, they've spent 5,000 crores in buying VVPAT slips. Why are you not counting it? The problem is that we are counting that vote which is not verified by the voter, but we are not counting the votes which are verified by the voters, by which I mean that the electronic voting machine that records, we actually, when we press the button, there are two impressions of the vote. One is the electronic and another one is the ballot. So the electronic one, we don't know what has recorded, but the paper ballot we can see and verify. That's why VVPAT was introduced. So what we are counting, the electronic vote, not the verified paper slip. So this is the problem. If you just count and tally, cross-verify the VVPAT slip with the electronic vote, I'm telling you, all questions, all doubts will die.
Yeah, but still, this discrepancy in terms of the number of votes polled and number of votes counted would remain. No?
I'm talking about EVM right now. This discrepancy is separate. That's a separate question. I don't know whether it will exist, persist, whatever. But right now I'm talking about EVM. Let's take one issue. So when you're talking about EVM, I'm just answering to that question because
Right. No. See, the point is, lot of people, interestingly, lot of people who had raised doubts about the EVM functioning. Like, for example, Yogendra Yadav has kind of has had different positions on the EVM. I mean, till the Madhya Pradesh elections, he was saying that he did not believe in the conspiracy theory around EVMs. But after the Madhya Pradesh Assembly elections, because he had traveled on the ground and he felt that Congress was winning that election and Congress lost badly, he told me that after that, I have also started having doubts on EVM. And he even quoted Kannan Gopinathan in an interview that I did during the first phase, around the first phase of polling of this election. He quoted Kannan Gopinathan and he kind of explained what Kannan Gopinathan had told him in terms of the technical details and how it is the VVPAT which is registering the vote and how the signal is coming from the VVPAT. Absolutely. And that's why, and he had explained all that. But after the results and after the numbers that he projected came, more or less correct to the actual numbers, he progressed. I did an interview with him after the results also. And one of the first answers he gave me was that let us now forever bury the EVM conspiracy theory. But then it is after that, after we have just aired that interview 3-4 days ago, and it is immediately after that your story has come. So this EVM mismatch, at least in terms of the the mismatch in terms of deployment and the way the EVMs are numbered and all that question is refusing to go away, whatever be the results.
Well, I can answer you this question, why I'm sure you must have followed the election. The vigilance that we noticed this time was commendable. By vigilance, I mean that the polling agents knew what exactly they have to do, although it started later, but they were aware of Form 17C. They were aware the importance of Form 17C. They knew that the Form 17C, if they have it in their hand, it becomes an evidence on the basis of which they can move to the court and challenge Election Commission, because Form 17C has important details like the unique number of the EVM machine, of the VVPAT machine, the number of votes polled in the machine. So these are the important details. So the polling agents were categorically told on the counting day that you're supposed to match these numbers, whether the EVM machines which are being counted are the same numbers, have the same numbers which are mentioned in the Form 17C. So the vigilance among the awareness among the polling agents and the candidates, I feel it was remarkable in this election. Till, I would say till first phase of Lok Sabha election 2024, candidates didn't know what Form 17C was. So now everybody, by everybody, I mean at least in the political circle and the journalists, they know what Form 17C is and the relevance of it. So this result, which you are seeing today, and whatever people might say this way or that way, I have no stand on that. But I can only say that the vigilance that we observed and the awareness of the civil society members, of the candidates, of the polling agents was commendable. So, the chances of it, if at all, I'm not making any allegation, if there was any intention of manipulation by anybody, that person must have been very careful now. It was not very easy for them. So when I say that the awareness has, really given this result, by this I mean that the chances of manipulation decrease.
But in spite of all that, the fact remains the Election Commission of India has refused to respond to your queries on this number of votes polled and counted. So where do we go from here?
Supreme Court. They only reply to Supreme Court. They never reply to my mails. That's very unfortunate. They never reply. I don't know what to do. I can't do anything more than writing them emails or tweeting them or tagging. That's all I can do as a journalist. So Supreme Court is the only, hope. And everybody is asking me the same question. I put the facts in public domain. Everything is in public domain. Anybody can pull out the data and do the data crunching, match it. Anybody. It's just the intention. The journalist or the civil, I mean to say, common person must have the will to do it. Based on that, court is the only way, because let me tell you that there's already one matter is pending in the court, related to
But
this.
Supreme Court did not uphold the right of the candidate or the voter to get 17C. I mean, it did not say that it is a.
No, the matter is pending. The matter is pending. It will come up for hearing after the vacation, after the court reopens after the vacation. So the matter is pending. We can definitely tell them that this has happened. Can EC explain what it is?
So anyway, we'll keep following you, Poonam, your progress on this thing, because it's a really fascinating and interesting work, and we at the IDEM and the Risala Update hope to continue this conversation with you, and all the best to your future investigations.
Thank you so much. Thank you.